So let's review. Sigilant nouns are nouns that have the accent on the first syllable and usually have a sigil, though not always. And as we saw in the last video, sigillants originally had an accented closed syllable as the stem vowel, and case endings were attached to this basic form. So you had a malk stem, as we talked about before. You had a malk with case endings, a malk stem, which was the starting point for the form, but then as time went along, when they dropped the case endings, they threw in a secondary vowel in order to make the sigilant. And so you ended up with a malk that went to malek, which went to melek. And I class and O class followed a similar sort of process. Now, in certain forms, you can tell what the class is. Safer, that E vowel, will tell you that that's originally an I or E class sigilant. In other forms, it's less easy to tell. In a form like na'ar, where the accent is receded, that's actually a sigilant, though because of the guttural ion, it never went to the E vowels. It had a helping A vowel to break up the consonantal cluster, and therefore the first vowel remained an A vowel in the pattern. And so we've gone over some of those endings that have that malk stem, malk, 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 in many of the cases, though not always in the plural, though with the heavy endings it does in the plural too. I-class sigillants will have the I vowel in many of the cases, except when you have certain forms in the plural. Your graves and my graves are both based on the plural form. And then the O-class sigillants will keep that O vowel through, so it goes from a holum to a kamatz hatuf, an O vowel kamatz. So your holiness is kod shakah. So it shows the original O vowel in the kamatz O vowel that shows up in those forms. And in this case, when the kof reduces to shava, it shows up as a kamatz hatuf, as a hataf kamatz, an O vowel kamatz, where it has a shava. Well, let's move on to some other suffixes on nouns with diphthongs. Where you have a noun like bayit with the AYI pattern and mavit with the AWE pattern, you're going to get vowel contraction. So whenever you shift the accent down, that AYI thing is unstable and tends to become a seri yod. You keep the yod, was originally a consonant, but now it's preserved as a vowel letter. And so bayit is house, but his house is beito, and then you add the other endings to that. Otherwise, it's pretty regular. Mavit is the same thing. When you make it, when you shift the accent forward by adding a suffix to the end, that makes the AW combination unstable. It vowel contracts and becomes the holum vav, an O vowel, and so mavit becomes moto, his death, or motaka, your death, and moti, my death. Now in the plural, bayit has an irregular plural form of batim, and it'll simply attach the plurals onto that plural form. However, because the kamatz here has come by vowel contraction and assimilating a yod, or actually probably a noon, because it's come by that means the Kamatsu here is unchangeably long, so even though you add endings onto it, you don't happen to get vowel reduction for this particular irregular form. A little bit on some other words. A real common word is isha, woman. And when you make it his woman, you'll take isha, you'll add the suffix at the end, but then the kamats will reduce to shava, and when that happens, it loses its gemination. It's what we call the Ski-Man-Levy rule, where words beginning with a sibilant or a kof or a yo, that would be the ski, or a mem or a noon, that would be the man, ski man, and then levy, L-E-W-Y, levy, a lamed or a vav or a yod. Any of those that are doubled followed by a vocal shava will often lose its doubling, and the shava becomes silent. So ish to is his wife, and ish taka is your masculine singular wife, and ish tam would be their wife. The plural form is nashim, and that will actually behave regularly once you have that form when you add suffixes to it. Daughter is bat. Always remember that because I had daughters and they drove me batty. But daughter is bat, and with predominant suffixes, it does a strange thing. It gets a doubling. A part of the reason is that the original root was bet noon hay, banada build, and that noon comes back in the form of an assimilated noon in the suffix forms, and so you end up going from bat to bito. Notice also the change to an I vowel, his daughter, and bitaka, your daughter, and banotav, his daughters, and banotehaka, your daughters. Again, the irregular plural is banot with a noon, and that will have the reduction of the proprietonic kamats when you shoot the accent forward by adding suffixes. And while we're at it, he gives you a chart showing the suffixes on preposition im and preposition et, both of which mean with. So with him is imo, with her is imah, with you is imaka, and with you feminine singular is imach, and then with me is imi. He doesn't mention that there's a biform of this with a dalet, imadi, which means exactly the same thing. And then imam would be with them, iman would be with them women, imakem would be with you guys, imaken would be with you ladies, and then imanu would be with us. Remember the form Immanuel or Emmanuel, with us is God. God is with us is based on imanu, that particular form. Preposition et, as opposed to direct object marker et, will tend to have a hierarch and a doubling. So with him is ito, with her is itah, and on down the list with that doubling in the middle consonant in most cases. And then he gives you the suffixes on prepositions el and al. And I'll just comment that these endings are the same as the endings on the plural noun. So if you memorize well the plural endings on a form like sus, Susav would be his horses. Well, elav is unto him. And Suseha would be her horses, but then aleha is unto her. And so these endings are the same as the endings on the plural noun. In fact, when I used a different grammar, I would have people learn preposition la and preposition el, and that made it real easy to learn the suffixes on singular and plural nouns, because they are more or less the same. Al behaves in the same way. In both cases, you do have, when you put heavy endings on, alehem, the sere here becomes propretonic and therefore reduces to shava, but aleph will not take a full-fledged shava, so you get a hataf patah. Same thing under the ayin here, under alav. When you put a heavy ending on, that makes it propretonic, tries to reduce to shava, you get a hataf patah. So in these plural suffixes, with the exception of the first common plural, you will reduce your vowel to shava. But with the first common plural, the accent is receded, eleinu. And since it's eleinu instead of elenu, the sere or the alenu with al, in both cases they're pretonic rather than pretonic kamatsas, and therefore they're stable. The next video will tell you about the vocabulary, a little bit about the homework, and do some drilling on sigillets with suffixes.